I'm sorry. I can't marry a poor driver." She didn't shout. She didn't insult him. She simply lifted the engagement ring from his trembling hand, placed it back into his open palm, and walked away. The old yellow taxi behind him remained parked beneath the fading golden sky. People watched in silence. Some pitied him. Others quietly agreed with her decision. At that moment, Sophia believed she was walking away from the wrong man. She had no idea that this single decision would change her life forever. Welcome to Story Lovers. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with unforgettable twists, powerful life lessons, and endings that stay with you long after the video is over, then you're in the right place. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's begin. 3 years earlier, the first time Sophia met Ethan, she almost didn't get into his taxi. It had been raining since early morning. The bus stop was crowded. Cars splashed muddy water onto the roadside as people desperately searched for transportation. One by one, every taxi that stopped was immediately taken. Finally, an old yellow taxi pulled up beside her. The driver rolled down the window. "You look like you've been waiting a while." His voice was calm. "Need a ride?" Sophia hesitated. The taxi looked old. Nothing about it stood out. She almost waited for something better. But another wave of rain quickly changed her mind. She opened the door and climbed inside. "Thank you," she said, brushing raindrops from her hair. "My pleasure." Ethan smiled as he gently pulled back onto the road. Unlike most drivers, he wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't overly talkative. He wasn't flirting. He simply drove carefully, making sure every pothole was avoided as much as possible. When they reached her destination, Sophia reached into her handbag. "How much?" Ethan told her the fare. She handed him the money. As she stepped out of the taxi, she accidentally left her phone behind. Nearly 15 minutes later, someone knocked on the door of her office. She opened it. Standing there was the same taxi driver, completely soaked from the rain. He held out her phone. "You forgot this." Sophia stared at him. Most people would have sold it. Some would have waited for a reward. Instead, he simply smiled. "I figured you'd need it." She thanked him. He waved politely, then returned to his taxi and drove away. That single act of honesty was the beginning of everything. Over the following months, their paths crossed again, then again, and again. Sometimes she called his taxi by coincidence. Other times, she secretly hoped it would be Ethan who accepted the ride. She liked how simple he was. He listened more than he spoke. He laughed easily. He respected everyone. Street vendors, security guards, waitresses, children selling bottled water in traffic. To Ethan, everyone deserved kindness. Sophia admired that about him. Slowly, conversations became coffee. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became love. 3 years passed almost without either of them noticing. They celebrated birthdays together, supported each other through difficult times, dreamed about building a future. Ethan never pretended to be someone he wasn't. He never claimed to be rich, never promised luxury. He simply promised one thing. "If I ever become your husband, I'll spend every day trying to make you smile." Sophia believed him. At least, she thought she did. But as the years passed, something inside Sophia slowly began to change. Many of her friends are getting married. Social media became filled with luxury weddings, exotic vacations, designer handbags, brand new mansions. Whenever they met for lunch, the conversations always sounded the same. "My husband just bought me a new Mercedes. We're flying to Dubai next month. He surprised me with a diamond bracelet." Sophia smiled during those conversations. But deep inside, comparison quietly planted a seed. She began looking at Ethan differently. Not as the man who made her laugh. Not as the man who always showed up when she needed him. But as a taxi driver. One evening, she stood outside his taxi after another date. Her eyes wandered across the faded yellow paint, the worn steering wheel, the aging interior. For the first time, she didn't see the man behind the wheel. She only saw the life she believed he could never give her. And from that moment, love slowly began losing its battle against ambition. unaware that Ethan had already made a decision that would test everything she truly believed. For weeks, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about the life she wanted. She loved Ethan. There was no denying that. But love wasn't paying bills. Love wasn't buying houses. Love wasn't giving her the future she had begun imagining. One afternoon, while scrolling through social media, she paused on a photograph. One of her former classmates stood beside a luxury SUV, smiling as her husband wrapped an arm around her. The caption read, "Marrying the right man changes everything." Sophia stared at the picture for a long time. Without realizing it, she began comparing her future with Ethan to everyone else's success. That comparison slowly became disappointment, and disappointment slowly became distance. Ethan noticed the change. She no longer laughed as freely. Their conversations became shorter. She canceled dates more often. Whenever he asked what was wrong, she always gave the same answer. "I'm just tired." He believed her, because trust had never been a problem between them. Several weeks later, Ethan made a decision. He didn't want to keep waiting. He had loved Sophia for 3 years. He was certain she was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. So he bought an engagement ring. Nothing extravagant, just a beautiful ring that he carefully chose himself. The jeweler smiled as he placed it inside the small velvet box. "I hope she says yes." Ethan smiled. "So do I." That evening, as the sun painted the sky with warm shades of gold, Ethan asked Sophia to meet him after work. She arrived expecting another ordinary date. Instead, she found him standing beside his old yellow taxi. He took a deep breath, then slowly knelt on one knee. Passing cars slowed down. Nearby shop owners looked over. Even a few pedestrians stopped walking. Ethan opened the small ring box. His voice trembled slightly. "Sophia, you've made the last 3 years the happiest of my life. I don't have everything, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life building a beautiful future with you." He looked into her eyes. "Will you marry me?" For several seconds, Sophia didn't answer. She looked at Ethan, then at the taxi, then back at Ethan. A long silence filled the street. Finally, she shook her head. "I'm sorry. I can't marry a poor driver." The words landed harder than any slap. She gently picked up the engagement ring, lifted it from the box, placed it back into Ethan's open palm, closed his fingers around it, then quietly said, "I want more from life." Without another word, she turned around and walked away. Ethan remained exactly where he was, still kneeling, still holding the ring. He watched until she disappeared into the crowd. Only then did he slowly stand. He looked down at the ring in his hand, closed the box, and walked back to his taxi. 3 months passed. Life had moved on. Sophia eventually began dating Victor, a wealthy businessman who seemed to have everything she had ever dreamed about. Luxury restaurants, expensive gifts, designer clothes, high-end parties. On social media, her life looked perfect, but appearances have a way of hiding uncomfortable truths. Victor loved attention more than he loved people. He often spoke down to waiters. He mocked those who had less than him. Everything was about status. Everything was about image. Sophia noticed, but she ignored it. She kept telling herself, "This is the life I wanted." Meanwhile, Ethan quietly continued driving his taxi. To everyone who saw him, nothing had changed. He still picked up passengers with a smile, still greeted people politely, still lived the same simple life. No one asked questions. No one suspected there was more to his story. One evening, Victor invited Sophia to an exclusive charity gala. "The owner of this company is one of the youngest billionaires in the country," he said proudly. "Getting invited here is a privilege." Sophia smiled. She adjusted her elegant dress and followed him inside. The ballroom shimmered beneath magnificent crystal chandeliers. Business leaders, politicians, celebrities, investors, everyone seemed to be waiting for someone. Suddenly, the room fell silent. Outside, a convoy of black luxury SUVs rolled to a stop. Security officers opened the doors. A tall man stepped out wearing a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. The guests immediately stood. Applause filled the ballroom. Sophia looked toward the entrance. Her smile vanished. Her heart nearly stopped. It was Ethan. Victor frowned. You know him? Sophia could barely speak. He's the man I was supposed to marry. Victor stared at her in disbelief. You rejected Ethan Kingsley? She nodded slowly. The taxi driver was the billionaire every guest had been waiting to meet. Later that night, Sophia found Ethan standing alone on the terrace overlooking the city lights. She walked toward him with hesitant steps. Ethan, he turned. His expression was calm. There was no anger. No bitterness. Only quiet peace. Tears filled Sophia's eyes. I am sorry. I thought money was everything. I judged you because of your job. I was wrong. Ethan looked at the skyline before answering. You weren't wrong about my job. I really was a taxi driver. She looked confused. He smiled gently. I've always believed that no honest job is beneath anyone. I drove that taxi because it reminded me where I came from. It helped me meet real people. It kept me grounded. Sophia lowered her head. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Ethan nodded slowly. Not because I became a billionaire. He paused. But because you stopped seeing the person and only saw the profession. Silence settled between them. Finally, Sophia whispered, Can we try again? Ethan smiled sadly. I'll always be grateful for the memories we shared. But love can't grow where trust has already been replaced by conditions. He wished her a happy life. Turned around and walked back into the ballroom. Sophia remained standing alone on the terrace, watching the man she once rejected disappear into a crowd that now admired him. She finally understood something she had learned too late. Wealth can open doors, but character determines who deserves to walk through them. Sometimes, the greatest mistake isn't choosing the wrong person. It's failing to recognize the right one while they're standing right in front of you.